you read in the newspapers, or you hear on the web that, of course, there will have been, people would have been prepared for this.
The royal walls of Britain have held centuries of secrets, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared them for the storm shaking their core right now. The handover of power looked flawless to the public, a royal ballet of smiles and tradition as Prince William seemed ready to embrace his destiny, backed by the loyal strength of the royal establishment. But behind those thick golden doors, another story was unfolding, a silent but ruthless power play that no one outside saw coming. Princess Anne, the family's most disciplined and loyal soldier, just pulled off a move so sharp and final that it left even the most powerful figures stunned. Without uttering a word or stepping in front of a camera, she's changed the royal game forever. For weeks, the palace buzzed with plans for the next big chapter, the coronation of the Prince of Wales. Every detail, every guest list, every strategy memo was being fine-tuned with military precision. In that world, information isn't just valuable, it's power. And who gets invited to the meetings? That's how you know who truly runs the show. Then came the shock. As the confidential plans started circulating, one name was missing from every single document: Queen Consort Camilla. Gone. Completely erased from the process. This wasn't a mistake, and it definitely wasn't an oversight. It was a calculated snub, an intentional and surgical strike, the kind only someone like Princess Anne could orchestrate. And the way Camilla found out? Brutal. No official meeting. No polite notice. Not even a whisper of warning. Her staff at Clarence House reportedly started asking why key memos weren't reaching her desk, and that's when the truth hit. She had been locked out, cold and silent. That's the moment the illusion of palace unity cracked wide open. The feeling inside was said to be one of deep betrayal, not just by a family member, but by the very system Camilla thought she'd finally conquered after years of carefully rebuilding her image. The message echoed through the palace like thunder. Camilla was out of the circle. The firm had drawn a new line, and she was on the wrong side of it. To the public, it still looks like a family bonded in duty and tradition, but inside those ancient halls, it's war. Princess Anne, the rock of the monarchy, just made her move, and it's a game changer. Her decision to cut out Camilla from William's future reign isn't just a snub, it's a statement, a royal earthquake. Was Anne protecting the future king, or was this a long-buried tension finally exploding after decades of quiet resentment? As we dig deeper into this royal battlefield, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just another palace spat. This is about legacy, loyalty, and power. And if Anne, the woman known as the monarchy's unshakable backbone, is drawing lines in the sand, something massive must have pushed her to it. The question now, has Queen Camilla's exclusion marked the start of her quiet exile? Could this be the end of her influence entirely? Whatever happens next, one truth can't be denied. The fight for the soul of the monarchy has begun, and the rules have changed overnight. To truly understand Anne's ferocity, you have to know what drives her. She's never been about media charm or glossy PR spins. She's built from iron tradition. Her whole life has been service, steady, silent, and unbreakable. People inside those palace walls don't just respect her, they fear her discipline. She's the invisible force that keeps the crown upright, and she expects the same fierce loyalty from everyone else. That's why her tension with Queen Camilla goes way deeper than personal dislike. This isn't gossip, it's philosophy, a clash between two completely different worlds. For Anne, the crown is sacred, earned through sacrifice, not through sympathy or strategy. She spent her life following the rules, living for duty, and never stepping out of line. So when she watched Camilla rise from the ashes of scandal to become Queen Consort, powered not by royal duty, but by public relations, it must have hit her hard. To Anne, this wasn't just another PR win. It was a betrayal of everything the monarchy was built on, a softening of the crown's steel core. Now, with one silent move, Princess Anne has drawn her battle lines and made it clear. The old ways aren't dead yet. The monarchy's future might belong to William, but the spirit of the crown still answers to Anne. While some senior royals went out of their way to make Camilla feel included, offering polite smiles and carefully crafted warmth, Princess Anne played a completely different game. She kept her distance, speaking only when duty demanded it, never showing affection, and never breaking from royal protocol. Her silence wasn't cold, it was calculated. And for those who understand the unspoken code of the palace, that silence was louder than any public snub. Anne has always believed that royal rank isn't something you inherit or spin through good PR. It's something you earned through decades of service, not sympathy or headlines. Those close to her still whisper about a sharp remark she once made after a summer event at Balmoral. She told a trusted friend, "Some people wear the crown for duty, while others wear it for appearance." She didn't name names, but everyone in that room knew exactly who she meant. When her brother took the throne, Anne's quiet concerns turned into full-blown alarm. She watched as Camilla's confidence grew, too quickly in her eyes. The new Queen Consort was suddenly more vocal in meetings, more involved in ceremony planning, and more assertive in protocol debates. To the outside world, it might have looked like a woman finally stepping into her role, but to Anne, it looked like a dangerous power grab. She saw a consort trying to rewrite the script of the monarchy instead of respecting its limits. At one major diplomatic reception, Camilla reportedly tried to take the lead in a conversation with a foreign envoy, a duty traditionally reserved for the sovereign or blood royals. Anne didn't hesitate for even a second. She cut in, redirected the discussion herself, and subtly put Camilla right back in line. It wasn't cruelty, it was control. To Anne, that moment wasn't personal. It was structural, a necessary correction to keep the institution from slipping into chaos. Behind closed doors, Anne began voicing her fears more openly. She warned that the monarchy's hierarchy was being blurred by those who didn't truly understand the gravity of the history they were walking into. For her, this wasn't a clash of personalities. It was a fight to protect the sacred order of the crown itself. As plans for the next royal chapter began, Anne took her concerns straight to Prince William in private meetings that few even knew happened. She didn't mince words. She told him that if Queen Camilla's influence kept growing unchecked, the balance of royal power could be shattered beyond repair. These weren't talks of vengeance. They were warnings of survival. Anne wasn't trying to tear anyone down, she was trying to protect the throne. She wanted William to see what she saw, a monarchy on the brink of being reshaped by media-driven influence instead of centuries-old duty. Bit by bit, she convinced him that the future of the crown depended on standing firm, shielded by tradition, not swayed by personal ambition or public approval. Her message was fierce and final. The crown is duty, not theater. And anyone who treats it like a stage must be stopped before they rewrite history. The atmosphere inside Clarence House grew heavier by the day. Staff described the air as thick, dense with unspoken tension and the ghosts of royal secrets. Every painting seemed to stare down judgmentally, as if the ancestors themselves were watching what would happen next. Then came that fateful afternoon just weeks ago, a moment that would change everything. Prince William entered Camilla's private sitting room, but this time, he wasn't coming as the polite stepson or grieving heir. He walked in as the Prince of Wales, the future king, a man who'd finally decided the old polite pretenses had gone on long enough. The tension between him and Camilla had simmered for years, hidden behind practiced smiles and polished appearances. But now, it was ready to erupt. Insiders say William had been quietly observing how Camilla carried herself, how she stood a little too forward in official photos, how her tone in palace discussions had become more authoritative. To him, it looked like she was carving out her own legacy, one that belonged to the bloodline, not by marriage. In public, William remained calm and proper, the image of royal composure. But behind those palace walls, the pressure was unbearable. He knew his moment had come. If he didn't draw the line now, his future coronation, the very symbol of his reign, would be shaped by a hand that he believed should never have that kind of influence. That day inside Clarence House, the quiet war Anne had started finally reached its breaking point, and William, guided by her words and his own instincts, was ready to take control once and for all. The moment William and Camilla sat down, the silence hit like ice. No greetings, no talk about family, not even a polite word about the king's health. It was a cold, heavy quiet that said everything before either of them spoke. Then William broke it, his tone calm but edged with finality. This wasn't a discussion, it was a declaration. He began by acknowledging the delicate nature of the royal transition, but he didn't linger there for long. Within seconds, he drove straight to the point. His coronation planning was moving forward, he explained. And this wasn't just another ceremony. It was his future, the blueprint of the next royal era. That meant change. That meant control. And that meant Camilla was out of the room where it all happened. William's words were polite, but they sliced through the air like a knife. He told her, with razor-sharp calm, that she would be stepping back from all key planning committees, especially those deciding the symbolism, ceremony, and structure of the next reign. This wasn't a request. It was an order dressed in velvet. He talked about the need for distance, for clarity. The world, he said, needed to see a fresh vision, a future defined by him and Catherine, not blurred by lingering shadows of the past. Her presence in high-level discussions, he added, had become more of a distraction than a help. He said it with the smooth control of a man raised in duty, but the meaning underneath was fierce and final. Her chapter was closing. To William, it was simple. She had been the bridge between eras, but he was the destination. He wanted her to grasp one undeniable truth. She might wear the crown beside his father, but she would not shape the kingdom of his tomorrow. Camilla, however, wasn't about to sit quietly and be dismissed by the boy she'd watched grow up. She had fought her way through the hardest public storms, endured ridicule, isolation, and the brutal headlines that once branded her the villain of Britain. She had earned her place through loyalty, patience, and sheer survival. And now this young heir was telling her to step aside? Not a chance. She stayed composed, her smile perfectly polite, but her eyes, those who saw them say, burned with quiet fury. When William finished, expecting resistance or reason, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. Instead, she delivered something far more cutting, a single, softly spoken line that landed like a blade wrapped in silk. "It is all symbolic tradition, darling, nothing more." The word darling hung in the air like poison. Maybe she thought she was diffusing tension, brushing off his intensity as overblown. But to William, that one word was pure insult. It wasn't just condescending, it was dismissive of everything the crown represented. To her, these centuries-old rituals were theatrics. To him, they were sacred. And in that instant, something deep inside the Prince of Wales snapped. All the quiet resentment he'd buried for years came roaring to the surface. The memories of his mother's suffering, the public scrutiny, the endless burden of expectation. For once, he stopped holding it in. William rose, his presence commanding, filling the room with a sudden charge of raw energy. He locked eyes with her and delivered the sentence that would echo through royal corridors for generations. "This is not your crown to shape." No shouting, no theatrics, just finality that hit harder than any raised voice could. The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the air in Clarence House seemed to freeze, as if the walls themselves knew history had just shifted. William didn't wait for a response. He didn't ask for understanding. He turned on his heel and walked out, the echo of his footsteps bouncing down the polished hallway, a royal thunderclap that signaled the end of an era. The very next day, he went straight to the one person who would understand the gravity of what had happened: Princess Anne. She was the only one whose devotion to duty and the crown matched his own. Behind closed doors, he told her everything. The confrontation, the dismissal, the darling. Anne didn't flinch. She didn't need convincing. She saw it instantly. The iron resolve, the same steel she'd carried her entire life, now burning in William. Right then and there, they made a silent pact. Camilla's exclusion from the coronation planning wouldn't just be an idea, it would be reality. And from that moment, the palace machinery moved with military precision. Meetings were rescheduled without Camilla's knowledge. Invitations were rewritten. Guest lists rechecked. Key strategy memos bypassed her office completely, routed instead through William's private team. Quietly, efficiently, the new royal order began to take shape, and Camilla, for all her charm and endurance, found herself on the outside looking in. The message was clear, and it was irreversible. The next chapter of the monarchy would belong to William, and Anne was ensuring no one else would hold the pen. It was a royal power play executed with surgical precision, so silent, so seamless, that for days Queen Consort Camilla didn't even realize she'd been erased from the palace future. By the time the truth hit her, it was far too late. When she finally saw the scale of what had happened, the fury that exploded inside Clarence's house was unlike anything the royal staff had ever seen. Her trusted aides described the tension as electric. Every word sharp, every command delivered through clenched teeth. But none of it mattered anymore. The gates had already closed. William had reclaimed his territory, and with Princess Anne standing firmly at his side, he had locked in a future ruled entirely by his vision. The battle for the monarchy's soul had shifted into a new, colder phase, and for the first time in her long climb to royal acceptance, Camilla was now on the outside looking in. Inside the palace, power doesn't move loudly. It slides in shadows, like clockwork running under glass. When Anne and William decided to remove Camilla from the coronation blueprint, they didn't need a public showdown. They used her own weapon against her: bureaucracy. They pulled off what insiders now call a surgical exclusion, a precise, trace-free maneuver that wiped her influence from every major decision without leaving a single mark. It was internal statecraft at its finest, executed by a small, elite circle of advisors who answered only to the bloodline royals. The first phase targeted communication. For months, Camilla's Clarence House office had been copied into every important memo, every strategy chain, every document shaping the future. But within just 48 hours of her clash with William, all of it vanished. A brand new communication system appeared overnight, one that cut her entire office out. Her private secretaries, her aides, her policy advisors, gone from the loop. Agendas were rewritten in secret. The official royal calendar stayed identical on paper, but the real meetings began happening behind closed doors, in private suites at Kensington Palace or discreet drawing rooms where phones were banned. When Camilla's team tried to follow up, they were met with smooth, polite brush-offs from William's staff. "Just an internal delay, ma'am." Or, "We're still reviewing details." But the truth? They'd been ghosted by the crown itself. Anne's fingerprints were all over the operation. Her mastery of royal protocol was legendary. She knew exactly how to move pieces without breaking a single rule. She advised William's staff on which forms could skip consort signatures and how to reroute documents under sovereign prerogative. Through her guidance, William's inner circle began funneling all sensitive materials through the Duchy of Cornwall channels, far beyond the reach of Camilla's loyal aides. Even the guest lists for early planning sessions were treated like state secrets. Every name was cross-checked, every background reviewed for loyalty. Anyone suspected of passing information back to Camilla's circle was quietly reassigned or mysteriously dropped from the list altogether. No confrontation, no explanation, just silence. William's new inner guard, the young court, as palace insiders started calling them, were fiercely loyal. They weren't just royal staff, they were believers. They saw themselves as protectors of a new age of monarchy, one that bowed to tradition, not manipulation. Under Anne's unseen direction, they worked like an invisible army, united by purpose and completely unfazed by the subtle pressure tactics of the Queen Consort's office. When Camilla's senior advisors tried to push back, they hit a wall of calm resistance. No one argued, no one raised their voice, but nothing moved forward either. Meetings were postponed, approvals were under review, and every attempt to re-enter the room met the same quiet, polite dead end. It was a royal freeze-out delivered with velvet gloves. Soon, the tone inside Clarence's house began to change. Confusion turned into panic, and then into a cold, crawling dread. Camilla's staff started noticing the signs, first subtle, then impossible to ignore. The phones that once rang every hour fell silent. The daily updates from the palace stopped arriving. Invitations to working lunches simply never came. The chatter, the buzz, the rhythm of royal life, all faded, replaced by an eerie calm that felt like being locked in a beautiful cage. Even the corridors felt different. Staff whispered in lower tones, eyes darting toward closed doors, wondering which one of them might be next to vanish from the royal loop. Clarence's house, once the heartbeat of Camilla's influence, had become a house of whispers and ghosts. One question lingers in the air like smoke. Was this the act of salvation the monarchy needed, or a ruthless betrayal of a woman who finally earned her place? Has the firm become too rigid in its pursuit of survival? Or is this harsh discipline the only way to ensure the throne still stands in a century that questions everything? The cracks in those ancient palace walls may be hidden from the public, but make no mistake, The divide runs deep, and its echoes will be felt for decades. So, what do you think about Princess Anne's final move against Queen Camilla? Was she protecting the crown, or crossing a line no royal should ever cross? Share your thoughts below, and if you found this exclusive deep dive into the unseen battles of Britain's royal family as captivating as we did, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay with us, because this saga isn't over yet. The Crown's next chapter is being written right now, and every whisper still matters.